Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Henchman's Memoirs. This is our campaign recap of our 5e Dark Souls of Drakkenheim campaign. It's been a little break in our recording schedule, but we are back, and we actually had a marathon weekend-long gaming session that I'm going to be recapping over the next few videos. So when we left off, our party of 4 adventurers, we got Nexel, we got Peter the monk, who I think has taken a level in Thief now. We've got Thaddeus the gnome, who might have taken home his Pathfinder pawn, so this is standing in for him. And then we've got Atticus, the artificer. And when we last left off, they were leaving Queen's Park Garden. They had rescued the hooded lanterns that were there, and they had actually killed the mutated form of Queen Lenore and taken her priceless necklace. And the NPC from the rival adventuring party, the Unrivaled Four, warned them that there were going to be people who wouldn't be too happy about them finishing off Queen Lenore when she is potentially a legitimate heir to the throne, which the Hooded Lanterns in particular are looking for someone that can reunite the various elector counts and put an end to the civil wars going on across the empire. So they decided to pocket the necklace, and for now, besides finding somebody who could pay them a decent price for it was going to be tricky. So they were going to keep that a secret for now and just focus on getting these Hooded Lanterns back to the garrison. That they did, and then they turned their attention to the attack on Temple Gate. Everything had been leading up to this big climactic battle here that's supposed to be a big turning point in the campaign. So that's where everything was going for us. Thaddeus, in the battle against Queen Lenore and her attendants, had taken 3 levels of corruption. It's the first time anybody in the campaign had taken any corruption. And although he got some cool mutations out of it, he also couldn't heal. He only got half, I think, from spending hit dice and none from a long rest. And so and then he found out that every time he did complete a long rest, he had to roll, and if he rolled a 20, he got another level. Rolled a 1, he got another level of contamination. So now they're realizing being a contaminated freak might not be everything it's cracked up to be. So they actually left the city itself. They went down to Camp Dawn. They were talking to them there about the coming attack on Temple Gate, and they were trying to see if anybody could purge corruption on old Thaddeus. The problem is, in my campaign, when you cast that, the caster and the target of the spell both gain a number of levels of exhaustion equal to whatever the however many levels were removed. So that's not so good. And everybody who was high enough level to cast the spell was gearing up for the attack on the gate. So he decided he would just live with the levels of contamination for now. They completed a couple long rests, and they got ready for the attack on Temple Gate. So the party is talking with the various leaders about the attack on Temple Gate and how it's supposed to go. And in order to explain what happened next, you need to understand how I run mass combats. Your old pal, the henchman, has been in the D&D game for a long, long time. And I've seen different mass combat systems come and go. And I know the one that's the best, and it's actually based on stuff that I collected from the D6 unicorn version of the Star Wars role-playing game. Of course, Star Wars is going to have some mass combats. Every movie, there's a big climactic armies clashing, snow speeders speeding, whatever. And they explained in there how to do a mass combat. And basically what you do is you come up with a basic idea of how the combat is going to play out in the big picture, right? And then you come up with 2 or 3 sort of make or break moments somewhere in the fight. Somewhere in the battle, there's going to be a situation where, oh no, the walker's armor is too thick for our blasters, and we've got to find a way to slow them down so people have time to escape, okay? Or, oh, the the Death Star has a big shield around it, and somebody's got to get this shield down so that we can make our attack runs and all this stuff. So this is where the heroes come in. And so you basically narrate the battle between the two armies and describe the ebb and flow of what's happening. And then all of a sudden, you know, when the Witch King reaches the gates, and you know they fly open, then it's time for our heroes to kind of step in. And one way of doing it is obviously their actions, the little side battles, the linchpin moments that they're involved in have to be the most decisive things about the battle. They have to decide who wins and who loses. One way of doing it that I did in this thing, every round they spend completing their crucial, you know, tide turning effort. Every round they spend doing that, the DC of winning the battle increases. And then at the end of the battle, somebody rolls, and maybe you're using the commander's intelligence, or you're using the leader's charisma, or something like that. You're rolling basically to decide if the good guys won or the bad guys won, and sort of how bad the losses were on each side. So the party talked to the leaders, and the leaders were like, well, there's this gate right here underneath this that we need to get open so we can get the Knights of the Silver Order through. Basically, the Hooded Lanterns, their job is going to be to maintain enough fire pressure through arrows and everything else to keep all of these Gamir busy, right? To keep them firing these and everything else. And they have this great big honkin' chimera that is the terror of this part of Drakkenheim. And so the Rangers are going to start by luring that thing out, getting that thing off the walls and out here into the outer city and fighting the lanterns. And then once they're fully engaged and all the Gamir are paying attention to the lanterns, and the Knights of the Silver Order are kind of lined up a little further away and they're ready to come charging in, but we've got to get this gate open so that they can come charging in at full speed. If they're slowed down by the gate, they're going to get torn to bits by the arrows and so forth. So that's where our heroes come in. And they know already that from how the other gates are laid out, there are these trap doors on these two towers, and somebody needs to land on top of here, get through this trap door, get down inside, raise the gate, and then break the mechanism and, you know, lock the room up so that nobody can lower the gate. And then, you know, everything should be great and the fight should be winnable. So at first they were like, oh, so we land on the two different towers and go down, and Elias Drexel was like, why would you do that when you could all land together and just go down one door, you know, instead of two? So the Hooded Lanterns had these griffins to carry our heroes on, and Pietor's lifelong dream is to be like Peter from Deadpool 2, the guy with the mustache who doesn't have any powers. And the fact that they were going to get dropped off by a griffin, he wanted more than anything to be jumping through the air like Peter in that movie. If you've seen the way he parachutes, you know, with his arms at his side and his mustache rippling in the breeze. So as soon as they got within, you know, 40 feet of their landing, he jumps and does his monk slow fall. And his plan was to bash through this door with his forehead and go on to the complete next map and be so far ahead of his allies and the battle plan and everything. And it was just too much for me. I couldn't allow it. I can only lay so many of these maps out on our play space at a time. I wasn't going to like go over to the coffee table and run a complete separate game for him. So he lands here, and the rest of them have to like make agility checks to jump off the griffins, and they do. And the fight is joined, and Nexel decides he's going to use one of his third level spell slots to kill all the Gamir over here with a fireball, or at least injure them all. Which he did. He rolled a ton of damage. And then I think he might have misty stepped over here kind of early. The way things ended up, these guys were fighting. I think he was over here using magic stone on some of these guys. So these Gamir are the gnolls from the Matt Colville Flea Mortals setup. See our previous video as a review to why that should be the only monster manual you're going to use for the rest of 5e. So they get in here, and they were having a little trouble with these guys. These guys do a lot of damage, but I was concerned that they were using all their spell slots and key points and sorcery points and everything else here in the very first battle, you know, before things even get particularly hairy. But eventually they managed to clean these guys up and move on to the next area. So they come tearing down the steps. These guys had already gotten over here. They'd used spell resources and everything to get over here. This was down a level from where they were. It was down like 20 feet. So they're like, oh, no problem. We'll just go down these steps. They can go down, our two fighter types can go down these steps. Our two spellcasters can go down these steps. And, you know, we'll just split the party. It won't be any big deal. So, much to my surprise, that's what they decided to do. They come down, and now it was my chance to try out the Flea Mortals minion rules, right? So these guys are all shooting their bows and stuff, their crossbows out these windows at the hooded lanterns, and the party comes down and they're ready to wreck house. So they were doing great over here. We used the minion rules where, you know, you hit them hard enough and it kills 2 or 3 of them, and they were doing fantastic. But these guys did not benefit as much from the minion rules, and they were kind of getting hurt over here and so forth. So these guys clean these Gamir up, and instead of being like, oh, let's go find our allies before we proceed, they're like, no, let's just keep going, and I'm sure they'll meet up with us eventually. Let's just go on without them. So they go down to the next map. Again, I only have so much space on the table. Fortunately, this is a dual map that has both levels. So they go down to the next level. They're fighting the guards that are guarding the gate controls. These guys finally clean up these Gamir over here. And they're thinking, oh, well, we'll go down the steps again and meet up with them on a different level. Even though there's a door here, they could just go across and meet up with their allies. They wanted to open up a whole new can of whoop ass on the next level down. So I was a bit incredulous that that's what they were planning to do. So eventually, like, fine, Glenn, you don't want us to go down the steps. We'll go through the door and we'll go meet up with our allies. They're like, we don't even know how they're doing. I'm like, yeah, that's one more reason not to go start yet another fight. Anyway, they eventually came across here and went down these steps. So they finally get down here. I flipped the map around. Don't worry about it. They finally get down here. They clear out a few more Gnoll warrior type guys, and they get in here to the gate control room. So this is where the timer starts, right? It's laid out in the Dungeons of Drakkenheim book exactly what you've got to do, the kind of strength checks you've got to make. You've got to make like 3 DC 15 strength checks in a row or something on each of these to like haul these things up. So these two guys get on those and start cranking for all they're worth. And they had some pretty bad rolls, but I think this was only up to 3 or 4 when they finally got the gate up. They blocked this door. They barricaded this. They broke these so that the gate can't be lowered. And they look out and they see all of the Knights of the Silver Order come crashing in. And so they've completed the first linchpin. But then they look out here. Out here, the Hooded Lanterns had been fighting against this chimera, right? And it's out there, you know, causing all these problems. But they see these sort of wisps of purplish energy coming from over here and from the other side and converging on this thing and like hypercharging it from this to this, right? It was like all grown huge and had purple energy shooting out of all 3 sets of its eyes. And I even described that it had Petra Lang, pinned down, and it was about to rip her throat out with its giant lion mouth or something like that. And it's breathing fire, and I don't know what the ram does, headbutting people. And so the players realized, oh, great. So the next linchpin is we've got to figure out what's supercharging this chimera and see how many rounds it takes for us to take care of that, because it's going to absolutely destroy the Hooded Lanterns. Anyway, if you like the content we're creating here, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and join us next time for the Henchman's Memoirs.